What is up, everybody? We are live here for the Halloween edition of the Swolecast. I'm Soccer Dave, David Kitchen. Joining me, we have Evan Silva dressed up as. Oh, you're dressed up like as an artist that goes to the New York museums and stuff. Very nice.
The mock turtleneck.
Mock. Very nice. And then Dan Gasper, Mr. Tuttle 05. Dan was on the fence of if he should. Dan, just go ahead and tell people what you did in case Evan dressed up.
Well, I thought I was going to be the only one that didn't dress up, so I ran and got a batting glove, a FanDuel batting glove. I've got a bat and a baseball, so I could be a baseball player if you guys want me to.
Yeah, that's terrible. That is terrible. You go all the way, or you just don't go. Speaking of going all the way, Evan, you had a really nice week last week. I feel like we all had a really nice week last week. Pockets on Swole are back.
Yeah, and we were due. I mean, that's what it all comes down to. We were due, and that's all that matters. No, I mean, we're starting to get more information. We're starting to get more data on teams. We can make really good decisions, and we were on. With the exception of Davis, we were all on the right plays last week. So hopefully we can stay that course. I'm sure that we'll have some down weeks. You know how it goes. But we should be hot. We should be better going forward than we have been to this point.
Davis, he got a lot of flack, and some of it was justifiable. But Martavis Bryant did score a touchdown. He would. That's what he would say.
No, let's.
Swag guy.
Davis isn't on the show, so no. Let's just talk crap. He's not on the show. He can't defend himself. Davis sucks. He went to a concert instead of doing a show.
He needed a week off. He needed a week off.
Talk crap.
And hopefully he bounces back next week.
Self-imposed one.
If we have him back next week, we'll see.
Self-imposed one Swolecast suspension. So yeah, I feel like on both sites, I had 30 lineups to do for this DraftKings Turbo Survivor I was in. My best lineup was our Swolecast lineup, except I swapped Carson Palmer in for Cam Newton once it kind of went off, and we had those two primetime games. But the best lineup was that lineup, and Evan, again, congratulations for the big $20,000 score. Tuttle, you had like one of the worst beats I've seen in a while. I can't even believe that happened for your qualifier seat.
Yeah, I thought I had a very good chance. I obviously did statistically too. I was actually leading a qualifier up 7 points on John Brown, and I had Larry Fitzgerald left.
Ooh.
And I ended up losing by 1.9 points. So that was not fun by any means. My Monday night was the opposite of Silva's. I'm very happy for Evan though. If I wasn't able to grab a seat, I'm glad that somebody on Pockets on Swole at least had a very profitable week.
Yeah, that Fitzgerald was brutal on Monday night.
Yeah, that was bad.
So, but
did
hey,
not
Evan,
see that coming, man.
No, he didn't. And we'll be talking about. It seems like there's always a Monday Night Football curse this season. So we'll be talking about if there's going to be one this.
Yeah, and this will be a good one too. So let's start.
All right, let's start. Quickly, if you are listening on this or if you're watching right now and you're a subscriber, we are rolling out a brand new site at beta.fantasyinsiders.com. If you are an NBA subscriber, you have to go to that site, or NFL, you have to go to that site, click on tools, and resubscribe for the alerts, text message, or email alerts that we send out. So important note, especially with tonight's NBA games and this weekend's college football and NFL games. All right, with that being said, let's move on to quarterbacks. Evan, I feel like last week the quarterback situation, we mentioned Luck, we mentioned Rivers, and both those guys, terrible first halves, but they had decent games. Carson Palmer is the other guy, and then somebody, I forget who, but somebody mentioned Mettenberger and Cash, and it looks like he's playing again against his Houston team that got torched last week. So let's just start I'm not going to say Met and Cash, but I want you to say it.
I really think he's still in play. I mean, I had him in Sunday only cash lineups last week. Did really well. I mean, he has a floor, and he doesn't have to get a lot of points to pay it back. And if you put him in this week, you can get Julio, you can get Le'Veon, you can get Gurley, you can get Mike Evans. I mean, I think he's in play. This is a really bad Texans defense. This is Zach Mettenberger's last shot before Mariota comes back next week. A little narrative street there. If he throws 2 touchdown passes and for over 200 yards, even if he throws 2 interceptions, he ends up, you're in a good spot. So I do like Mettenberger and cash. I think that really the strongest cash play on FanDuel is Eli Manning at 7,300, which is a great value for a top 7-8 fantasy quarterback. And I really like Cam Newton in tournaments in the Monday Nighter.
Yeah, and I think Cam Newton might even be cash game eligible. I do think, though, that, again, the two sites are different. I don't think you have to use Mettenberger and cash at all on DraftKings. I did use them last week, and it seemed like my Mettenberger lineups were better, but I think that's just because I had Lamar Miller in the Mettenberger lineups. And DeAndre Hopkins didn't do anything. But on DraftKings, I don't think you have to have him. On FanDuel, it's nice having a cheap quarterback for some salary relief, Dan.
What do you think about that?
I'm usually the one that's I'm usually the one that's adamant against Mike Vick, Mettenberger, and Cash, and that's usually because I don't take, and you guys know this, I don't take extremely strong stances against individual players per se, but I'm more of a where does lineup construction take me? And on FanDuel this week, I think it's the first week where it can be acceptable to save at quarterback and go down to Mettenberger, because I think the biggest news that came out that's kind of swaying me in that direction is that it actually looks like Eric Decker is going to be a true game time decision this week. If we have confirmation that Eric Decker is okay to go, I like him as one of my cash game wide receivers, and I think that frees up enough cap space for me to spend a little more on quarterback. But if he's not able to, I'm really not in love with any of the low range or mid range wide receiver options, which will make me want to spend up at wide receiver and in turn save at the quarterback position. So I think just from a purely wide lineup construction standpoint, I think it's completely okay to go a little cheaper at quarterback this week.
Yeah.
So Tuttle, here, let me ask him a question. So let's just rule out Mettenberger, because there will be some people who, understandably, don't want to play Mettenberger, period. So if you had Mettenberger off the board, who would be your cash game options on FanDuel?
So I haven't been able to make anybody work in that mid-range yet. So it's going to be tough. I think if I had to go mid-range, I think I would be Eli Manning with you. From there, I think I would then step down. If I had to step down, it'd be probably to Jameis Winston. Just because I think he's not going to be efficient, but he's going to throw the ball a ton. He's going to be in catch-up mode. So I think he has enough in him to give me some garbage time points. Those would be probably my two guys if I'm going up from Mettenberger and not going all the way up to the Cam Newtons of the world.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm with you as far as Eli goes in that mid-tier. I think Alex Smith is a decent option if you're playing that early slate with the London game, because he's 6,600. But as far as if you're not playing Mettenberger or Eli, you got to look at Cam Newton, and you got to look at Andy Dalton and Phillip Rivers, two guys that I think have pretty high floors. You could safely say now, both with some decent weapons. So the big thing for me, like Tuttle said, is that Decker is now a game time decision. Also, John Brown, I guess, was suited up and practicing today. If he missed, Michael Floyd at 4,900 on FanDuel was an interesting play that could save you some cap relief that you could go more expensive at the quarterback position. All right, so we'll talk in a second more about quarterbacks. We need to make our DraftKings lineup. We're making DraftKings lineup and a FanDuel lineup here on the Swolecast. So, Evan, I'll let you start out.
Le'Veon Bell.
Boom, love it. I love Bell this week. Daniel?
So we're over on DraftKings.
Yep.
Let's go Ladarius.
Okay. Ladarius might be the overall value play for everything. Okay, so I like Bell. I like Green. Let's just go kind of super chalky with Todd Gurley.
Yes. Rams D.
Rams D, who had the news come out that Carlos Hyde is out for this upcoming week. So Rams D even more in play. 3,200. It's very expensive, Evan. Very expensive, but we'll make do. Daniel?
Well, I'll continue the chalk, and this guy is about as must play as you can get on DraftKings because of his salary. That's Alshon Jeffrey, who's at 6,400 on DraftKings.
Alrighty, so we've got Alshon, and I'll go ahead and pair up. No, I don't want to do that. I'll go AJ Green at 7,600.
Mike Evans.
Going back to the Evans well.
Yeah, no ASJ, no VJax. Both those guys listed as doubtful. I mean, I think Evans has 20 target upside.
Tuttle, you're gonna have to go.
Let's pair him with Jameis.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, since I think we only had 5,400 for a quarterback if we wanted it.
All right, so we've got 3,200.
Now we got to go bottom.
3,200. We've already got Ladarius, or else I would go Stevie Johnson. Let's go
Reggie
with
Bush.
let's see, against our defense.
Against our own D.
I mean, he's maybe not be a bad.
What? I want to hear. While we're searching here, I want to hear Evan's take on. Not that we're going to play anybody in the 49ers backfield anyway, but how's that work going to get split up now?
I really don't pretend to know. I really don't. It would be hard to tell based on their actions to this point. Reggie Bush is expected to start the game. You know, at times it has looked like they view Jared Hayne as a legitimate option at running back. At other times, it doesn't seem that way. Mike Davis, the rookie, has been awful. I mean, legitimately awful. So my guess is just a lot of work for Reggie Bush right now, but that could be wrong. You know, I don't have a good feel for it.
Man, you guys have left me, I guess, with Stevie Johnson at 3,200. There really isn't too many other options. We go cheaper at Rams.
If we want to go,
we could go.
If we want to go really
chalky, we go.
Let's go hardcore GPP. Hardcore GPP and do the double stack with Jameis and go Dante Dye at 3,000.
Wow.
Not that that's attractive by any means, but it beats tinkering around with the lineup.
Yeah, I would almost want to do Darren McFadden at 3,800 and have 2,600 left over for defense. That could get you Titans, Bears, Raiders. Okay, if you guys want to do die, we can.
I think nobody wants to, but
okay,
whatever. Just so we move on.
There you go. It's entered. All right, let's move on. Different quarterback options. We've talked about some of those. As far as Cam Newton, you just said it could be like, I think Cam could be like a really fun play or a miserable play on Monday night, Evan.
Yeah, I think he's going to end up being a fun play. I like starting running quarterbacks against defenses that play a lot of man coverage. Because, you know, in man coverage, in zone coverage, defenders are looking into the backfield and, you know, they're anticipating. In man coverage, they're sticking with a guy and they're taking their eyes off the quarterback. So, you know, it's an opportunity for Cam to break some big runs. The Colts defense hasn't been good in general. I mean, the team total on Carolina, I think, is 26.5. Really, really strong. They're at home. I think there are a lot of things to like about Cam. I don't think I'm going to play him in cash, but I think he is a good cash play, and I think he's the ultimate tournament option. His price has still not really adjusted for, I think, where he should be. Because he brings so much upside to the table.
Tuttle, on DraftKings, it's not like a situation on FanDuel because their pricing is so much softer, where you don't have to go really cheap, and so you can play either Dalton. I feel like Dalton might be the number one cash game quarterback on DraftKings at $6,000.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of people trend that direction just because actually he is so cheaply priced at 6,000. I don't mind it. I think he'll have plenty of opportunity, and he's obviously has the weapons to perform well. Uh, the Bengals actually have a relatively, I mean, it's not a completely low team total, but it's a little lower than what you would expect in this matchup. I think it's around that 24-point team total, which isn't exactly ideal. I think the consensus is that they're going to overperform that team total. But if Vegas is onto something that we're not, and they're only going to get 3 touchdowns in that game, I think you're going to be leaving with not a. You're not going to get enough out of Dalton if they only put up 3 touchdowns in that game. So I think he's a good play, but I think I'm going to be one of the rare guys that avoids using Dalton in cash games.
Yeah, and Cam Newton only 800 more. And again, if you're within 1,000 on DraftKings, you can make it work somehow because of pricing, even with team defense. All right, Evan, your thoughts on Dalton this week as far as this Pittsburgh secondary goes? It feels like I'm actually targeting this game more than any other game. I know a lot of people are targeting that San Diego-Baltimore game.
Yeah, Steelers are also going to be without Stephon Tuitt, who is, before his injury, looked like he was emerging as an elite defender in the NFL. I mean, I like Dalton. I'm surprised that Tuttle, level-headed Tuttle, is not all over him. He seems like a play who's right down Tuttle's alley. I think he's a high floor play.
He's a baseball player, Tuttle.
I think that Dalton definitely gives you 3 touchdown upside against a bad secondary, a team that doesn't really rush the passer without one of their best players in the front 3. I don't play as much on DraftKings, but when I found out about his price on DraftKings, I was like, wow, he's like a must play. The game has shootout potential. It's a 48-point total. It's not a monster total for the Bengals. I think it's down to 23.5. But I think Dalton's about as strong a play as you can get. In terms of cost on DraftKings. And also, what I like is the idea of stacking this game to some extent. Dalton. If Dalton has a big game, you can pair him with AJ Green and Marvin Jones. I think that could pay off at all their respective prices, and you could play Le'Veon on the other side. I think that's an intriguing option.
Yeah, that's kind of what I have as far as going this week in placeholder lineups. So as far as Rivers goes, Tuttle, I'll let you what's your take on Phillip Rivers this week?
Yeah, I think Rivers is a great play. He's obviously has the passing volume going for him. Expect the exact same thing this week. He should be throwing the ball a ton. Baltimore's defense is horrible, but if they're good at anything, they're decent at stopping the run. So once again, we'll be seeing a lot of attempts from Rivers, and it's a good setup for him. Volume over efficiency is something I always say. Rivers has had a good combination of both so far this year. and I don't see that stopping this week. I think that game actually has the highest over-under of the week. The Ravens are slight favorites in that game, but there's going to be a lot of points on both sides. And actually maybe getting overlooked because of all the love the Bengals and Steelers game is getting. So if you're looking for a little, potentially some lower owned players, you could go over to that game. Maybe run a Keenan Allen's a guy that's going to get overlooked big time this week.
Yep.
Maybe pair him up with Phillip Rivers, and I think that would be a good way to start some contrarian tournament lineups.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's go with running back as far as guys you like. I'll let you start, Evan, with your love for Le'Veon Bell, because I'm just kind of curious as far as past weeks how heavily owned he's going to be this week.
He's not going to be that heavily owned. He was only 11% in the Thursday bomb on FanDuel. All the focus is on Ben Roethlisberger returning. Everybody talking about, Antonio Brown, his price dropped. All the people that play Antonio Brown aren't going to play Le'Veon Bell. And, there are a lot of running backs in that same price range that are attractive. Devonta Freeman, Adrian Peterson. I know a lot of people on FanDuel are on Justin Forsett this week, and a lot of people are on Todd Gurley. I think that Le'Veon's own percentage in the Millie Maker, for instance, will be under 10%. And I think that this is a beautiful, beautiful spot for him. The Bengals are allowing almost 5 yards per carry to opposing running backs. Le'Veon absolutely shredded them last year. He actually got hurt in the second game, but through roughly 6 quarters, he had over 300 total yards, 3 touchdowns in those 2 meetings. And, I don't think that this is a game where, in Ben Roethlisberger's first game back, we're going to see 50 pass attempts from Ben. I think we're going to, see around 30, and this game plan is going to be focused on getting Le'Veon Bell the ball against the Bengals' slow-ass linebackers. The Bengals start A.J. Hawk at linebacker. They start Ray Maluga. This is such a good matchup for Le'Veon Bell. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I wanna hear your take then, because I know a lot of the lineup construction. Actually, this week on FanDuel, Todd Gurley Forsett. That's the combo that's going to be the most heaviest owned. If you're swapping off of either Gurley or Forsett to get Le'Veon in, who's it going to be? So are you going to run a Gurley? Are you running a Gurley Bell combo or a Bell Forsett combo?
Yeah, Gurley Bell. I like Justin Forsett fine. I don't love playing him, in fantasy. That may prove silly this week because he's underpriced. He is going against the worst run defense in the league, south of Cleveland. There's a big point total on the Ravens. It's almost 27, I think, and that may very well be silly. Justin Forsett on paper is a great play, but I have a really hard time not starting Le'Veon Bell wherever I possibly can, and same with Todd Gurley.
Yeah, I've got both of them on both lineups. The issue is that they're not cheap, and so you've got to make concessions somehow, and especially like on FanDuel,
that's why you start Met. That's why you cash game Met.
I'm kind of scared. Usually you guys are the ones telling me no. I'm getting a lot of head shakes. And so when you were the first one that said Met and cash.
And we've been right. So you would want us with you.
Sort of right.
Because for me personally, the results were there with Met lineups last week. I mean, I put him. I had a lineup in the Millie Maker. It cashed in the Millie Maker with Met in it, and I started him in Sunday only cash, and I had a really solid profit. These cheap quarterbacks are underrated, Tuttle. I think you're underrating them. I really do.
No, I think it's an important point to make, though, is that a lot of what daily fantasy is, and this gets overlooked a lot of what daily fantasy is lineup construction. So don't go into a week forcing in any singular player. You might end up, and it might end up being that way with the Todd Gurleys of the world. but kind of go in when you're constructing your lineup and fiddle around with every single option that you can just to see what's available there. And it sounds like what we're seeing is that when you do fiddle around with the lower quarterbacks this week, you're getting that most optimal lineup construction.
Alfred Blue must play title.
Oh God.
I wish we had some clarity with that backfield.
Yeah,
It does scream. It's going to be something this week where one of the running backs of the Texans is just going to go off. It's going to happen.
yeah. I mean,
It's just good luck guessing which one.
that game is going to be interesting. Let's start with Devonta Freeman. His just seems like his price tag, or I'm sorry, I'm talking about last week. I'm still on last week as far as this point goes. Real quick, Mettenberger was a Justin Hunter terrible drop and a Kendall Wright drop right in front of the red zone of having like a really decent game. And was even leading to, I don't know, it was just an ugly game overall, 10-7. So yeah, there was almost overtime. But anyways, let's go forward with that Tennessee game since we're already there. DeAndre Hopkins, Nate Washington, probably two of the guys you're going to target, possibly Delaney Walker on the other side. I mean, Delaney was the guy that Mettenberger went to on these clutch drives. Like, I mean, he was the receiver they went with. So, Evan, your thoughts on Hopkins and Nate Washington this week?
Hopkins is in a great spot. It's the same spot that Julio was in last week. And what did Julio have? Like 17 targets. He should have had 3 touchdowns. I mean, he got whistled down at the 1 yard line or something and they reviewed it even. And then Matt Ryan just flat out missed him. Matt Ryan's so overrated, by the way. It's a great spot for DeAndre Hopkins. My thing is that, this is another week where I like Julio better than him. And I think Mike Evans is comparable to DeAndre Hopkins. They're in very similar situations. And you can get Mike Evans on FanDuel for $7,800, whereas you have to pay $9,000 for DeAndre Hopkins. And I happen to like Mike Evans' talent better than Nuke Hopkins. And they're both in positions where they're going to be target monsters, and they have good matchups or above average matchups at worst. But you can go get Mike Evans for $1,200 cheaper, or you can take Julio, who I think is the wide receiver 1 overall this week, and he's only $200 more than Hopkins.
What is your take? I mean, we're already on wide receiver. We're kind of skipped running backs. If you have a question, feel free to get with us or put it in the chat, and we'll make sure in the question box, and we'll make sure to answer it in our lightning round session. What's your take on Antonio Brown this week, Dan? He's back with Roethlisberger. His price is not like too low, but it's also like not where he was quarterback one. Wide receiver 1 the first couple weeks of the season.
I think I'm with Evan here in the sense that I don't think we're going to see a huge Roethlisberger game. I think a lot of what's going to happen is the game's going to flow through Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers' offenses. I think he's at probably one of the lowest price points he'll be at all year. So I have no problem if you want to try to play Antonio Brown because of that. You think he's at an exploitable price tag, go for it. I think he's a good option this week. But I also think I like the other options around him a little better. I have no problem playing AJ Green over him. If I'm going in GPP, I'd actually probably take Odell Beckham Jr. over him, and he's just $300 more. If I can get up to Julio Jones, I'm with Evan in the sense that he's my number 1 wide receiver of the week, so I'd be playing him over Antonio Brown. So I think he's a good play, but he's not a guy that I'm putting in my cash game lineups, and he's not a guy that I'm probably going to be overly exposed to.
Fair enough.
Let me say that I was listening to the Fake Football podcast with Rich Rebar, and Rich Rebar brought up a stat where, Roethlisberger in games coming off layoffs, whether it be due to injury or what have you, in his first game back, he's only averaged about 219 passing yards. He has 9 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Just a data point to consider. He didn't have Martavis Bryant in those days, and Martavis Bryant can break anything open, in the blink of an eye. But just something to consider.
I do think you talk about that tiers. FanDuel is a little different than DraftKings. DraftKings, you've got that tier 1 with Julio and DeAndre and Odell Beckham, where their price tag is in the 8,500 plus range. And then you have AJ Green and Alshon Jeffrey and Antonio Brown, who are sub 8K, which I think you actually could work your way. Like, you could have all three of those guys technically in your lineup with a cheap quarterback and a McFadden, for instance. So I think you can do a lot of stuff there this week, and that's just because the pricing is softer, and so you can make a lot more combos. It seems like last week when I had a lot of the FanDuel lineups were the same, actually, because there was only so much that you could do with some of these players, and so I'm anxious to see on the two sites this week what's going to happen as well. All right, let's get to some questions. Number one is Garcon.
Get out of here.
Good play this week. Garcon is suing FanDuel.
He's blacklisted.
He's suing FanDuel, and yet some people just blew his spot up because he had posted links last October to all of his FanDuel leagues, and now he's suing them because they're using his likeness. So that's interesting. All right. Best cash play at running back on DraftKings. C. Johnson, probably not now with this news that's come out that David Johnson's going to get more work. Woodhead, J. Stu, or DMC?
No. That Ellington is going to get more work.
I'm sorry, Ellington.
Yeah, Ellington's going to get work.
I'm
mad that came out. I think Silva was probably with me here. Were you staying away from Chris Johnson no matter what this week, Evan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually hate the news that Ellington's going to get more work.
I just want to play every down backs in DFS because they have higher floors, And Chris Johnson is a guy he's going to get 16 to 19 carries, but he isn't involved at all in the passing game. So.
All right, so Woodhead, J. Stu, or DMC this week? McFadden's got such a low price tag, but he's against the Seahawks. So, Dan, you've got to answer one. Woodhead, J. Stu, or DMC?
I'll go Woodhead.
I'll go Darren McFadden.
I don't think I'm dipping that low, but I'd go Woodhead.
I'll go Darren McFadden. What's your thoughts on Darren McFadden this week overall, Evan?
No.
Okay, all right. Rank AJ Green, Keenan, Calvin, Antonio Brown for cash. Green, Keenan, Calvin, Antonio.
Too many guys.
Okay.
It's going to be Green as number one.
Calvin was real low owned in the FanDuel Thursday bomb. I think he was like 7% tops, might have been like 5%. Nobody's talking about him, no buzz on him at all, and this is a great matchup for him after the Lions kind of shook up their offensive staff. And really, their only problem for the Lions has been their pass protection, their offensive line play, which, sometimes a few tweaks can fix, pass protection, or not make it great, but make it competent, and that's really all you need. Is just competent offensive line play. Love Calvin. Again, when I'm really on one guy on a team, and then we're discussing another guy on the same team, I don't, I have a built-in bias against them. So I'm not really on Antonio Brown this week, but I totally understand why people would be. I'm just so in on Le'Veon Bell. And so that creates a bias against him. Keenan Allen, awesome play. He's seen at least 13 targets in 3 of Antonio Gates' 5 missed games, and Antonio Gates doesn't look like he's going to play this week. The good news on that, though, is that we will find that out early on Sunday, because San Diego is in Baltimore, so we'll know that early. And then who was the fourth guy? AJ Green.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he might be the strongest play out of those four this week. Raybon has the home away splits for AJ Green. He just destroys in road games. Great matchup against the Steelers secondary. AJ Green has topped 80 yards in 3 straight games against the Steelers, and he's averaged 133 yards over that span. So I don't know how I'd rank him, but those are my thoughts on all those guys.
I really like AJ Green this week. I know Tuttle does as well. All right. Let's see. I know we had a ranking question. Okay, rank these wide receivers: Alshon, Evans, Demaryius Thomas, Keenan Allen. I think that's exactly the order you would want to have them. I'm all about Alshon this week, especially on DraftKings. If I know Evan, you probably would flip those two, especially for FanDuel. As far as this game Sunday night goes, primetime game, but you've got this Broncos D, so you're not really playing any of the Packers except maybe in tournaments. And then you've got Peyton Manning noodle arm on the opposite side. So what are your thoughts as far as the Sunday night game? Just stay away except for tournaments?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yep.
I have a little bit of James Jones, but I don't love it. It was just like a price play,
Gross.
and the fact that I think that he's going to be, he's still a solid bet for a TD. I think Richard Rodgers is a little bit interesting, but I don't play Richard Rodgers, so.
No, we don't play Richard Rodgers at all. Tuttle, will Josh Norman shadow Moncrief? Are we going back to the Moncrief well? You were the guy that played T.Y. You suggested playing T.Y. Hilton last week and even put him in that glorious Swolecast lineup. So, your take.
I haven't caught anything. I think yesterday or the day before, it actually sounded like Norman may shadow Ty. I don't know if Evan's got an update on that. But I know Norman in the press conference was seeming a little coy and kind of had a grin on his face when talking about T.Y. Hilton. So there was some thought that he would actually shadow Ty this week. If that's the case, Moncrief obviously then has the better of the two matchups, and he would be the guy that you would actually want to roster.
Evan.
I think Moncrief actually could be a sneaky play because of that.
Yeah, I'm definitely on Moncrief. I played him in Thursday Cash. I don't think he has a great matchup. Charles Tillman is still good, but I like my chances against him either way. I don't know that because Norman never shadows, so or rarely shadows, I should say. I don't know that Norman will shadow T.Y. Hilton, but he plays on the side of the formation where T.Y. normally lines up. T.Y. gets most of his snaps against the left corner, and that's where Josh Norman usually stays. So I like Moncrief from that perspective. He correlates well. Also, if you want to play Cam and maybe Olsen, stack them together, Moncrief correlates well in a sort of Monday night game stack. I do like Moncrief.
Well,
he's still underpriced for a guy who scored a touchdown in every single game that Andrew Luck has started.
Yep, and there's your Decker swap too. Exact same price on FanDuel.
Exact same price, right?
Yeah, we had a question about Decker. If Decker misses, what's your thoughts on Brandon Marshall, who I think a lot of people liked anyways, Evan?
Yeah, we got to take Marshall seriously. We really haven't talked about him a whole lot in recent weeks. Not that he's been tearing it up in those weeks, but this is an awesome matchup for him. If no Decker, I mean, he will destroy if there's no Decker. The thing is that I think that Decker will play, and that game is not until 4 o'clock. So, I don't know. I mean, I think Decker's going to play.
Let's see. Dan, what's your thoughts on we got some Marshawn Lynch questions with his usage rate going up last week.
I think he's a fine play, but a guy that I won't have a lot of exposure to just because I like other wide receiver or other running backs kind of in his price range. A guy that's priced very similarly on both sites that I like a lot more would be, and who I think is going to be underowned because of Todd Gurley, is Matt Forte. Forte coming off a bye, I think is a very strong play this week. He's been averaging right around 24 touches a game. Again, off a bye, decent matchup. He's a guy that I would rather have over Marshawn Lynch because he's going to get you points various ways. Again, yeah, he's a fine option. He's just not going to be a guy that I'm going to be a lot of exposure to.
Yeah, there are so many RBs in good spots, Dave. I mean, Adrian Peterson was 1.5% owned in the Thursday bomb. Marshawn Lynch was 2%. Forte was like 4%. I mean,
Yeah, there's.
I don't know. I mean, do you guys think this is a week to pay up at RB? I kind of lean that way. And then if you want to be contrarian, I think it's a week to pay up at wide receiver.
Right.
I think.
Go ahead, Tuttle.
I think if you pay up for that second running back spot, that's going to create some variance in your lineup right there. That's going to make you different from what the most popular trends are going to be. Because a lot of the lineups are going to have Forsett in there. So I think if you feel like you have a good read on RB number 2 over Forsett and it's paying off, then you're gonna differentiate your lineup right there.
Yeah, and I feel that's like with Bell over Forsett, I can't believe that's going to be like a contrarian play, but that I have Bell and Gurley in pretty much every lineup that I have. I'm also like a cash.
Dave, we are doing this together, man. We are doing this together.
Let's do it. A big part for my lineup construction is going to be this John Brown news. So apparently he did not practice today. I'm trying to read up on Twitter. But if he's out, give me all the Michael Floyd on both sides, and that's going to free up a lot of cap space to do whatever you want. So is Michael Floyd viable for cash if Brown is out? Yes, the answer is yes if that happens. All right, one more question before we start talking about some more wide receivers. This from Bustin Jaley, old Justin Bailey. What is Evan's take on Willie Dynamite Snead on FanDuel for 5,800? 71% of snaps, at least 71% plus snaps last 3 weeks.
You broke up a little bit there. Did you ask about Willie Snead?
Willie Dynamite Snead.
The Sneeder?
Just give him a null wave. Just give Bustin a null wave.
The numbers look good on paper. I agree. Like the fact that he's playing a lot of snaps. He saw 7 targets last week. I think he's a little bit less attractive with Ben Watson playing a bigger role. Cook starting to make make sporadic plays here and there. Marcus Colston back healthy. Willie Snead is not going to score touchdowns. Davis, if he were here, would cite Willie Snead's 4.65 40. I mean, I like Willie Snead, and I would play him in a season long PPR league, but his touchdown projection is so low that to me, and look, I mean, he could score a touchdown this week. I'm not saying that he can't score a touchdown, but his touchdown projection going into the week is so low that to me, he's barely an option on FanDuel where you're TD hunting. You're touchdown hunting on FanDuel.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As far as like it being a touch, I think everyone would agree that it's just very touchdown heavy. And so if you're not getting those red zone targets or opportunities, it's really tough there. A guy that has been getting some opportunities, Steph Diggs last week. If you followed the points last week, you were rewarded. And we had a question: is Steph Diggs safe for cash games? I feel like he's almost safer on DraftKings than he is FanDuel, Dan.
Yeah, the only problem I have with Diggs, and it's going to burn me, I think, more often than it's not going to, is that I'll never consider a Teddy Bridgewater wide receiver safe, which is going to have me not play Teddy Bridgewater wide receivers very often. I haven't been on Diggs yet. I've been admittedly slow there, but I'm going to keep that stance, especially with his price rising.
Davis put me on him a couple weeks ago, and I thank him for that. 4,900 was just an amazing play that opened up salary. This week, though, with his price I think he's playable on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's 6,700. I'd rather play Steve Smith or Smith.
I was just going to say the same thing.
And Smith was actually in my placeholder cash lineup too, with it being a high scoring game, and he's like the go-to guy. And I'm not really a big Smith rosterer, Evan, but tell me that's okay that I have him in a cash game lineup.
Yeah, I do. He's averaging 11 targets a game, man. No Eric Weddle for San Diego. Big total on the Ravens. If you want to fade the Forsett train, because everybody's on that. I mean, he was almost 30% owned in the Thursday bomb on FanDuel. Go Steve Smith. I think that Steve Smith is an underrated QB wide receiver stack option that isn't too expensive, and you can get in some studs around it.
I think Steve Smith tweaked his knee in practice, though.
He's
yesterday.
Fine. He's probable.
Okay.
He's probable.
Okay. And he's going to play no matter what. He's an old man. This is the farewell tour.
Because he's Smith.
He's Smith. All right. Let's make a FanDuel lineup, and then we'll talk about tight ends. Evan?
Okay. Le'Veon.
Tuttle?
What did we do on DraftKings?
What
who cares? I'll go Julio.
Yeah, let's just make the best picks. Who cares what we did on DraftKings?
Yeah, I'll go Julio. Julio.
Love it.
All right. I'll go Mettenberger. Just get that salary out of the way.
Okay. Gurley.
He was going to be the guy that I was going to roster. Teams are going to look very similar. We've got to go cheap, though, Tuttle. We don't have too much salary room.
I'll go with this because I think it makes an interesting lineup construction point on FanDuel. That's been one I've been struggling with. Is Rams D again is the lock of the century, but they're a lot harder to fit in on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. Especially if you're trying to go the Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley combo at running back and get a wide receiver like Julio Jones in there. So if you are saving, what I tend to do is I go all the way down as far as I possibly can.
Give me 49ers.
And I'd take, no, definitely not 49ers D. Oakland Raiders at 4,100 I think are an interesting option.
Ooh,
I don't think it's not a great matchup. I mean, with defense anyways, you're not going to get a huge amount of variance unless you luck into a DST touchdown. So if we get one of those, we're lucky. If Rams don't get a defensive special teams touchdown, then we're still in the game with the $1,000 savings. So I'm gonna go ahead and roster the Raiders.
And if you're $1,000 short on DraftKings, the Raiders are $1,000 less than the Rams. They're 2,200, one of the lowest teams compared to the Rams. So they currently would be a decent play. All right, so we've got 6,400 left if we go Minsal kicker like a Josh Lambo, who I know I'm on and Evan's on. So that means we've got 6,400 left average for 3 players.
Mike Evans. And he correlates well with Julio.
All right. Let's see. If I go Floyd, that would give us enough to go Olsen on Monday night.
Works for me.
So I will go Floyd.
I like it.
and then we can add Olsen in. So here's the roster with $100.
Whoa. Should we upgrade Lambo to Robbie Good as Gold just in memory of Davis Maddock, who used to be on the show?
Yep. Let's do it. Solid gold.
I love gold. Yeesh. All right.
Robbie solid gold.
Robbie solid gold. So
dude, this is a good lineup, dude. This is a cash lineup. And tourney.
So this is something I forgot to ask Evan a little earlier, and I think the answer is clear, but I'll ask you anyways. It seems like you're clearly on Mike Evans over Alshon Jeffrey. Is that correct?
Yeah, but the reason for that is not necessarily rational. It's because Xavier Rhodes still scares me, even though he has not played well. You know, he still scares me a little bit, and that's the only thing. I mean, they're like basically the same exact price. You know, they're the difference between Lambo and Good as Gold. You know, so and I mean, I do love Alshon though. This week, every time that I have the opportunity to lean in one direction, I'm going to go with Mike Evans.
Yeah. I mean, and Evans did well last week. I know you were like the only lineup I had him in
out
the Swolecast lineup that you put him in. So I can definitely get down with that. I'm anxious. I'm toying with a 3v3 swap here on FanDuel, but I don't have it complete yet to even ask a question. So let's talk about the tight end position. So on DraftKings, it's clearly Ladarius Green. On FanDuel, Evan, your thoughts on tight end roster construction? You've got Eifert, you've got Green, you've got Olsen, all three guys that are in that same range.
Yeah, I mean, this is weak to say, but I like all those guys. And I'm going to go with the cheapest one. Like if we have confirmation that Gates is out, Ladarius is like an auto play to me, unless I'm, constructing a tournament lineup with Cam plus Olsen or Alex Smith plus Kelsey, or Dalton plus Eifert. Ladarius Green is so cheap. I think on both sites that if we get confirmation Sunday morning that Gates is out, and I expect that he will be, Ladarius Green is a cash game play. Last week he saw 9 targets. He played 93% of the snaps. He caught 2 2-point conversions. He's the first guy that Rivers looks to in the red zone. Not Keenan Allen, Ladarius Green. He should have had another touchdown, but he dropped it. He's absolutely cash game viable.
Dan, your thoughts on tight end position on FanDuel?
Pretty much what Evan said.
Nice.
There's not a whole lot of ways to go here. If you're paying up, it's going to be Olsen or Eifert. I'm probably going to be under-owned on Eifert just because I'll likely have my exposure to the Cincinnati wide receivers in that game as opposed to the tight end position. But Eifert's a great play. Ladarius is probably going to be my most heavily owned tight end. And if I have to go any cheaper at all on FanDuel, a guy that I think is intriguing, he hasn't done anything really at all this year. He has gotten 3 receptions in each game he's played, but no yards to go with it. Would be Larry Donnell. The Saints are 32nd in DVOA against the tight end position. Donnell's actually got a lot of red zone targets this year. He just hasn't converted on them. So he's a guy, I think, if you want exposure to that Saints-Giants game and haven't found a way to get it in, I think he's an interesting way to do it at what projects to be a weak position this week.
I agree. And if you think that Delvin Breaux can contain Odell Beckham, the ball is going to go to other guys, whether that's Larry Donnell or that's Rube. I agree. I'm with you on Larry Donnell. Eli Manning is a guy that nobody's talking about. His price is way down in DFS, just over 2 slow games, where just circumstance led to him not tearing it up. I mean, his price should be on FanDuel. His price should be 8,200, especially in a game like this. But his price is 7,300. He's such a good value play, man.
And we are seeing with the tight end, just more usage there. I like more stacks, it seems, with the quarterback and tight end position than almost the quarterback and wide receiver position. You've got Eifert and Dalton, Olsen and Cam, Ladarius Green and Rivers, Delaney Walker, Mettenberger, Donnell, Eli Manning. Like, there's 5 right there that I could see a genuine cash where you stack your quarterback with your tight end and then let your position plays go wild. All right, I've got a 3v3 for you both. Answer me this. On FanDuel, Brandon Marshall, Steve Smith, Ladarius Green versus the guys we just had. Julio, Michael Floyd, Olsen. Marshall, Smith, Ladarius Green versus Michael Floyd, Julio Jones, and Olsen.
The second one is going to get the second one, like by a good distance.
Okay. So there you go. 4,900 for Michael Floyd. Again, he's the key that I want to see presented with John Brown being out. I would love to see it. He would just make lineup construction so easy this week. All right, yep. I think with that we'll wrap up the tight end position. We'll get to some questions really quick, and then we got to bounce. We've got NBA coming up. We've got alerts. We have a podcast that Dave Lochran did earlier. You can listen to that the last hour before lineups lock. All right, can you play Bell and AB together in cash games on DraftKings? Yes, I think you can. Even with Roethlisberger, I think it's perfectly okay to play both those guys in cash games. All right. DraftKings, Tuttle, Cutler, Met, or Hoyer?
Cutler.
I would agree with that. Let's see. What quarterbacks were on top again? Cam and Dalton and Met. Yes, that is correct. Let's see. Pivot from Green and Eifert to Gilmore, Evan. I'm guessing you're giving the nah wave there.
I think Gilmore is in play as a tournament option. He's not even a consideration in cash, but in a game where, again, the Ravens have a big team total, and they're going against a weak defense that is missing their defensive signal caller in Eric Weddle, their field general. I mean, I think that Crockett Gilmore is an interesting play in tournaments.
Let's see. If Decker doesn't play, who is your replacement? Same price range. Tuttle, you said Moncrief for that. And let's get to one more question. Is Fitzmagic still in play if Decker is out, Evan?
Can you say that one more time?
Is Ryan Fitzmagic, still in play if Decker is out?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think he'd be more likely to throw picks, and then that would, because he'd lock onto Marshall, and at some point in the game, the defensive backs, as bad as they are, would start to jump those routes. I mean, the Jets have nothing behind. They don't have a tight end. That's a meaningful part of their passing offense. Their other wide receivers are like Kimbrell Tompkins. Owusu was wave injured. Enunwa is on suspension. Jeremy Curley is another guy. Like, the Jets coaching staff doesn't even want to play Jeremy Curley. I think that if Decker was out, that would put the Raiders defense into play.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, and we both we all like Raiders defense at where the price range is. Okay, last one. Gilmore's 2,500 and a huge over/under at home and getting targets like mini Gronk. I actually like on DraftKings a tight end stack with Ladarius Green and Crockett Gilmore $5,500 combined, and you can do whatever you want with all the positions. $2,500 Mensah for Gilmore, $3,000 for Darius Green. So that is just one of many GPP strategies that you can have over on DraftKings this week. Evan, final thoughts?
I just hope that Davis bounces back, and recovers and licks his wounds and comes back and, turns in a strong show in week 9.
The good thing is, like, if Davis was here, he would not be dressed up either. So it would just be me looking even more, or me and Tuttle. Sorry, Tuttle is a baseball player. Tuttle, final thoughts from you?
Met in cash.
Met in cash. All right, everybody. This rabbit is getting frisky. All right, that will do it for the Swolecast Halloween edition. And reminder that you can catch this on the iTunes channel. Just search for Fantasy Insiders. You can catch it on the iTunes channel or replay it here on Spreecast.com. Also, we've got our plans up and, again, a new site, beta.fantasyinsiders.com, where you can check out that new site, which will be rolled over to our new site soon. Thanks to Evan Silva from rotoworld.com. Thanks to Dan Gass from Mr. 05 from Fantasy Insiders. We will see you guys later.